Okay, so I'm just starting now. Okay, so the meeting has started.
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, hang on.
I can't see me.
Just having an issue, it seems. Okay, it's now live, Councillor.
Right. Should I be able to see myself in the live box?
You will see yourself in 30 seconds. I'm just leaving that on as a welcome sign to all attendees.
All right. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Nice to see you on this sunny evening. We will start with Candida taking a bit of a roll call so that if anybody's joining in from outside, they know who's here. Is that okay, Candida?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to read alphabetically your names, and if you could just, for the benefit of the public, tell us you're present. Okay, so Sam Casey Rohe.
Yes, present.
Sue Cooper. Probably not here yet. Stefan Garishak. He's on mute, I think. Stefan.
Sorry. Yes, present.
Thank you. Sarah Gray.
Present.
Kate Gregory.
Present.
Simon Hewardine.
Present.
Lynn Lloyd.
Present.
Caroline Newton.
Yes, I'm here.
David Ruan.
Yeah.
We've had apologies from Ian White, and his substitute today is Alan Thompson.
Right. Okay.
And Alan Thompson, if he can just confirm he's present.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Well,
Excuse me. I'm here too, and you didn't call my name.
Oh,
Celia Wilson.
oh, I'm sorry. Celia Wilson, apologies.
You can
Not
hear me,
apologies,
obviously.
you're present.
Yeah, yep.
we can hear you and we can see your sofa, but not you. Brilliant.
I don't know why
Thank you.
do that.
Okay. Well, we'll just start with the chair's announcements. And actually,
Oh, dear.
Celia, we can still hear you, dear. Actually, it's written as chairman's announcements, and please could we just have it as the chair rather than the chairman in the future? Thank you. So, COVID-19 has completely altered the landscape for climate and biodiversity since we last met in January. Lockdown and social distancing are changing the way we live and work. Some of these changes can be harnessed for the good. The reduction in travel and commuting has markedly reduced air pollution and carbon emissions. Some degree of home working has become a preferred option for many businesses, such as Barclays, who are closing entire offices. In our own council, we are responding in a positive way that many of our staff regard home working and are adjusting our plans for the new council building. This may give more leeway to ensure that it should be zero carbon, both in its build and in its operation. Transport emissions should alter as people commute less. The government's Department for Transport has allocated £2 billion to allow social distancing in towns. This has led to pop-up barriers to increase the width of pedestrian areas and of cycle lanes. Oxfordshire County Council has received bids from our towns for pedestrianisation schemes or cycle path improvements. There is a general wish for 20-mile-an-hour limits in towns and villages to slow and smooth traffic flows. Grant Shapps, Secretary of State, calls this a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a shift from cars to walking and cycling. Fundamental changes have occurred, shifting the focus of the economy away, for example, from hospitality and the visitor economy. There's been a surge in unemployment, and we, and Oxfordshire Local Enterprise Partnership, should be focusing on retraining and redeployment of people to different work. For a green recovery, which we shall talk about at our next meeting, we need significant new skills. We need retrofitting specialists to make the 60,000 existing homes in South Oxfordshire more energy efficient. We need passive house builders to ensure that new homes never need to be retrofitted, as they will be zero carbon in their build and in their operation. And we need to provide good jobs on the land for an agricultural revolution that moves away from industrial chemical-based farming and towards rewilding for nature recovery. A green recovery would also mean the repurposing of our factories to more useful goods. Some car factories have simply closed due to there being no market for cars during the pandemic. Others have repurposed. Formula One has been making medical ventilators. Our future home heating systems will be electric. They will be heat pumps. The specialist engineers and the mass production techniques of our car industry are perfectly placed to improve designs and efficiencies of heat pumps and mass produce them for this growing market. That's just one example of repurposing. The changes that are upon us are hard to take in their entirety. There could be a complete shift in the way society operates. It could be a shift for the better. We want South Oxfordshire to be at the forefront of guiding and encouraging this. So that's what I've got to say. We've still just got the front page up, Michael. I don't know whether, or is that true? What can people see?
Currently, the image on the event should be you, Councillor Roberts.
Okay, that's not what I see in my screen, but perhaps that's just how it is.
I'll just check.
No, I only see the welcome notice as well, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. That's strange because on mine it's showing as Councillor Roberts. I'll try sending you a live again. If you could let me know if that's working now.
I'm only seeing the front page at the moment too.
Me too.
Apologies, I'm trying to look into this. For some reason on my screen it is displaying Councillor Roberts. I'm going to try and open up a separate video and try and address that for you.
Thank you. Well, we can just carry on. Have a look at the minutes of the previous meeting and decide whether they are an accurate representation. If anybody can remember back to January, I certainly struggle.
Are you doing matters arising separately, Chair?
Oh, we don't actually normally do matters arising, Celia. I talked about this before. Sorry, I talked about this with the council staff earlier. In that, what we normally do, I think what we're going to try and do is, at the end of the meeting, talk about agenda items for the future. So that would be where you might bring a matters arising. Do you think that will satisfy your current issue?
Sorry, Chair, I can't indicate that I want to speak in anywhere at all at the moment, but surely we need to have an opportunity to see how the progress of those things that were on the last time's minutes, how they are progressing.
The way that you will get to put your hand up, if you like, is, do you know how to open the chat box?
Well, I've just got the front sheet at the moment, same as everybody else. So,
okay, if you hover in the middle of your screen, you'll get the bar up, and then you press the chat box, and then you can ask to speak when it's.
Sorry, I'm not getting that. I don't want to take the meeting's time, but could you answer the question?
Yeah, sorry.
Please.
That we will be looking at the progress of the whole of our programme as part of this meeting in any case. But if there are specific things that aren't covered by that, then maybe you could bring them up at the end as things to consider in another meeting.
Councillor Roberts, would you like me to just add?
Right.
We just had a discussion about having a work programme similar to what Scrutiny has, in that we would then have a running record of items we were wanting to look at, and we would review them at the end of each meeting as an agenda item. So it would be constantly changing as to, you know, we could just change it as we need to, and then things wouldn't drop off. We'd have a record of them.
Well, as far as I can see, for example, the resolution about contacting with local farmers isn't on the list of the work programme at the moment.
That was exactly the one that I picked up, Celia. So thank you for that. That is one that we will make sure gets onto the next, well, not the next agenda, but gets into the forward planning for future meetings. So thanks. That was exactly what I was worried about.
And Councillor Roberts, I'd just like to confirm that you are displaying on the live feed for the public.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right. Has anybody else got any other comments on the minutes or any issues with it? Okay. So can we vote to accept those? Oh, I have one other issue actually, which is that I prefer the chair's announcement actually to be inside the minutes rather than in an appendix. So if that could be rectified for these minutes, that would be very nice. So is everybody, how do we do this? Call out your names, I suppose. Oh, Candida, can you take a roll call of everybody approving the minutes?
Yes, I can do that, Chair. So Sue Roberts.
Yes.
Sam Casey-Rahay.
Yes.
Sue Cooper. I don't think she's with us, yes. Stefan Garishak.
Yes.
Sarah Gray.
Yes.
Kate Gregory.
Yes.
Simon Hewardine.
I'll abstain as I wasn't present.
Okay, thank you. Lynn Lloyd.
Yes.
Caroline Newton.
Yes.
David Ruan.
Yes.
David Ruan.
Yes.
Thank you. Celia Wilson.
Sorry, I can't participate at the moment, I don't think, because all I have on the screen is watch the live event in Microsoft Teams, so I cannot see anything at the minute.
We can hear you, and actually that from our perspective, there isn't a great deal to look at.
So Celia, do you agree that the minutes are an accurate record of the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And
Sue Cooper is here and I'm quite happy with the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Is that everybody then?
Alan Thompson is here as well, but he wasn't at the last meeting, so I guess he can't comment.
Okay, well let's move on. That sounds like the minutes are fine.
No.
So do we have any declarations of interest? Any declarations of just?
Yeah, thank you.
Alan, you might need to mute yourself. Are there any disclosable pecuniary interests? No, good, right. Urgent business? Anybody have any urgent business? Marvellous. Okay, well, let's then move on. There's a question from Celia. I'll leave it to someone technical to answer that one. Let's move on to have a look at the work programme update, which is item 6. Okay. Actually. Okay. So there's a bit of background to it. And I've highlighted point 7 actually on page 9, which is was interesting. This was in the background. The officers will continue to monitor our cuts in emissions and work closely with partner organisations to harness the trend that has happened since COVID and review the opportunities to boost low carbon businesses through the development of economic recovery plans. As I mentioned in my address, we were very keen that the recovery should be a green recovery, and that is something that we will discuss at our next meeting. The Council will also seek opportunities to support safe walking and cycling and improve air quality. Walking and cycling are forms of transport that have been further encouraged by the government as part of their COVID-19 response. Anybody who feels like chipping in, just write a little note in the meeting chat and I'll try and spot it. So the work programme review is just to show us what has been going on and what has had to be stalled because of COVID-19, because I think you are all aware that many of our, the Insight and Policy team and therefore most of our climate workers have been full-time managing the COVID-19 outbreak. Some things have managed to continue, and so we will just go through them point by point. There are 14 items on our work programme, and we will start with number 1, which is to define the scope of carbon emissions across the district to be included in the climate emergency target. Establish a baseline of district-wide energy consumption and carbon dioxide emissions. So we were to have received a report from the consultants that we gave this work out to, who are called AETHER, AETHER, and that hasn't been actually technically possible to do today, which is really unfortunate because that's a substantial piece of work that we're moving forward on. So what we would like to do is set up a task and finish group to deal with, to look at the AETHER report and to look at any matters that will arise from it, work out where we're going to go forward on that. And previously, we've had a task and finish group that comprised Jo Robb. She would like to be on this again. Simon Hewerdine, who dropped out last time. So I don't know, Simon, would you like to be in this one or not?
I think you're toggling me on as I'm toggling myself on, Sue. I think that's. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Super. No, I'm dreadfully busy at work, and I wouldn't like to let anybody down, so I'll decline. Thank you very much.
Okay. Caroline, you were on last time. Are you happy to be on again?
Right. I would quite like not to be, if that's all right. But equally, if we haven't got other people who are leaping to do it, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay. Is there anybody else leaping to do it?
I think Sue. I'm Celia here.
Oh yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
You asked me just at the end of the last round if I would join the group.
Yeah.
When Simon decided he didn't want to do that, and I agreed, and I'm happy to continue if you would like me to.
That would be brilliant. Thank you. So Celia, Jo, me. That's enough. But so Caroline, you're let off the hook.
Okay. But if you need to draft somebody else in, by all means, come back to me.
Okay. Yeah. Is anybody else really keen? Because you're very welcome. No. Okay. Brilliant. In fact, there's a couple of things for the task and finish group to look at. That's just one of them, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So item 2 is that's very pleasing. Item 1 that's in progress, and we've got a report that we can look at. Item 2, creation of a vision for a future low carbon South Oxfordshire. Now this was out with Bioregional. One Planet Living, and we did quite a lot of work on that actually in the Task and Finish group. So and it was due to be ratified. So this piece of work is still outstanding. In the meantime, Bioregional have commenced the process of mapping the South Climate Emergency Work Programme onto the vision and carrying out a gap analysis. So that must be onto the draft vision that they're doing that, which is great. So once we've got a gap analysis, we'll know which bits to fill in, but it's been paused at the moment. And Michelle, do we know when that would come up again?
Oh dear.
Thank you, Chair. Michelle Wells, Insight and Policy Manager. I don't have a timescale for bringing the vision item forward. Happy to accelerate it if it is something that the committee wish to bring forward instead of other items that they're yet to consider on the work programme. I think one of the reasons it's paused is because I did kind of wonder whether the committee would like to revisit the vision in light of COVID-19, and whether that shift in landscape that you alluded to in your chair's announcement, whether you wanted to revisit the vision and amend or strengthen any points that had come up in it.
Thanks, Michelle. That's a brilliant point. And I'm sure we absolutely should do that. So it would be good to get that in with the Task and Finish group, because I think it's pretty important to know where we're trying to head to. Does everybody agree with that?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go on, Celia.
Sorry, it's very hard for me to indicate that I wish to speak, so I'm just having to interrupt. The point that you alluded to in your opening remarks, Sue, about how what we needed to proceed with was a much more green approach to everything. It seems to me that the first and most urgent thing to do is to make some impression on the fact that planning permissions do not at the moment, and we cannot actually require them to build zero carbon buildings. Yeah. And that's a really important thing.
That is a really important thing, and we will get onto that in a minute. That's a bit further down about the planning design guide, and yeah, we'll come to that in a minute, Celia. Celia, you can ask to speak. What you have to do is you have to type a little message into the chat box. That's the method that we're using.
Yeah, but the chat box disappeared before.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I've got it now.
Right. Brilliant.
Sorry,
okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Councillor Roberts, can I just add that that's right. The meeting chat is how you would ask Sue if you wish to speak, and then you'd be invited to speak. And if you could just say your name for the benefit of the public as well, please. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Thanks. We've got a rather weird screen that we're looking at, but I don't suppose it matters. Sam, would you like to speak?
Yes, so just to say that I think that bringing that vision back to the Task and Finish group is a really good idea. I've got poor network quality here, but I hope you can hear me. I won't go any further.
And Sue Cooper.
Right, thank you. Yes, Simon and I have just come from a leaders group meeting where Mark actually indicated that it is thought in government circles, and please don't take this as gospel because it may not happen, but the government are thinking of declaring the Arc as a zero carbon area, not only for building but also for operation. So it's the two strands which I'm trying to stress to people. If they, I mean, everybody thinks this is a wonderful idea because it's a good PR exercise for the government, if nothing else. It would be really good if this area could show the way in this. I mean, yes, ideally the whole country goes, but at least if they do it for the Arc, it's something. And so I think looking again at our priorities, you know, maybe by the next meeting the government will have said something about this. So it's quite an exciting opportunity, I think, if it does come to fruition.
Yeah. Caroline.
Thanks, Sue. Actually, I had a question. I wanted to pick up on that, Sue Cooper, if you don't mind. For the purposes of the, sorry, Caroline Newton, Councillor Caroline Newton. For the purposes of that, where does the Oxford-Cambridge arc deem to start from in this end? Is South Oxfordshire in its entirety part of the arc?
Yes, the whole of Oxfordshire is. It's very much on county boundaries. Well, from it's Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Northamptonshire, Buckinghamshire, Bedfordshire.
Okay.
Etc.
Okay, thank you very much.
Michael's just asked if councillors could display their video feed when they're talking. It might be safe to display your video feed anyway, and we'll see whether it crashes or not. And that would be easy. Sue, did they mention biodiversity at all in that, or they're just talking about?
I mean, it's very high level mentioning. It's
just talking about climate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Brilliant. Okay. So we've done number 2, which is to have another look at the vision, which would be super. Number 3, South Oxfordshire Greenhouse Gas Emissions Report, 2018-2019. So Michelle Wells, is it the case that has? It says it's the first year that the Insight and Policy Service have taken over responsibility for this. Is that because it was out with Capita or someone previously?
If I could ask one of my officers, Heather Saunders, to comment on that for me, please.
Yes, Heather, please.
Good evening, Heather Saunders, Corporate Energy Officer. So this is just an issue of changing staff resources. So a colleague of ours in the housing team who works on private sector housing used to be responsible for that work. We've reorganised and it wasn't appropriate anymore for her to do that work, so it was passed to our team, and it took us, there's quite a lot of complicated procedures behind collecting the data, so it just took us a bit of time to make sure that we were accurate, and now we're more experienced with this activity.
Brilliant. Okay. Councillor Celia Wilson asks if it's easy to find a link for the greenhouse gas report. Now, I found it, so I think it was with the agenda. I picked out the salient point, which is a really nice small point, which is that they looked at the whole of the greenhouse gas emissions from South Oxfordshire District Council's affairs, starting with 2009 and ending in 2018, if you take the earlier year. So from the 4 years, 2009 to 2013, there was a 20% drop in our greenhouse gas emissions. And by greenhouse gas emissions, we mean carbon dioxide, but also including all of the other methane and nitrogen dioxide and all those other greenhouse gas pollutants. So that came down 1,000 tonnes. So 20% drop in the first 4 years of that period. The next period, 2013 to 2018, which is 5 years, there's a 17% drop. So the problem that we have with reducing carbon emissions is that the low-hanging fruit are taken first. So it always gets harder and harder. So that was another 700 tonnes reduced in the next 5 years. And now we are still responsible for 3,700 tonnes per annum, which is a fair old whack. That's something we want to get to zero in due course. Oh, sorry, there's quite a lot going on here.
I just want to say something, Sue.
Oh, go on then.
Just as an interesting point I was thinking about, and I wonder if we could maybe think about this in the carbon gas report, is that during the COVID period, obviously the greenhouse gases will have dropped, and this could artificially make our figures look much better next year, but they could be artificial in the sense that we could just bounce back and we haven't actually taken any actions, in other words, to achieve those, or long-term actions to achieve those reductions. So I think just as a point of interest, we need to think about next year's carbon emissions quite carefully.
Yeah, that'd be 2020-21. So this last report that's just come out is 2018-2019. So that'll be in 2 years' time. Be quite interesting to see how things are bedded down and whether any of that is retained. We've still got Sam as live. Michael, is that how it should be? Oh, no, it's me now. Brilliant. Yeah. Good. So actually, number 3 and 4 are interestingly related, because one of our consultants that we've been to is Concept Energy to ask them about the carbon footprint data collection, which has given rise to this greenhouse gas report. I think that's right, isn't it, Heather Saunders, that we're just talking about that the thing that Concept Energy are looking at and doing a critique of is the thing that has produced the greenhouse gas report that we talked about in number 3. Is that so?
Hello, Heather Saunders, Corporate Energy Officer. That's correct. So items 3 and 4 are just looking at the council's emissions from their own estate. That's correct. Yeah. So Concept Energy have got suggestions about how to improve that data collection, and that is in progress. Oh, speak please. Right, Celia.
Yes, it just follows on from the point about the artificial reduction. I was hearing a speech. I cannot give you the evidence, but the idea was that during lockdown there's been a 7 point something. There been a 5 point something reduction in the energy gases, and that what is needed is a 7 point something reduction in order to keep to 1.5 degrees increase in temperature. So actually, even in lockdown, we did not reduce our emissions enough, it would seem. And that indicates to me that rather than saying this is going to be a blip, and when we're allowing emissions to increase, the function of this kind of committee should be to work very hard to make sure that they actually do not increase. So I'm wondering if we can express that in our work programme.
Yes. Simon. Simon?
Hang on. Yes, I've managed to unmute myself. Sorry, Chair, is it the case that you unmute us or we unmute ourselves? Because I think we keep doing that.
Oh, I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
But Michael might be doing something. Michael is the producer, I think.
Okay. No, so if you wish to speak, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so Councillor Simon Hewerdine, following on from the previous 2 points, as a district council, we maintain a number of air quality management devices across the district, including diffusion tubes. Diffusion tubes measure an average of various gases, mostly close to roadside areas, but not necessarily. Obviously, we are going to see some dip this year because of the reduction in traffic. But if we want to catch the bounce fairly early and get an idea of what's happening soon, would there be some scope for potentially changing our air quality management strategy so that we've got more real-time monitoring? Because if we wait for another year, all we'll get is the annual average, which is retrospective and won't really benefit us very much in terms of reactive forward planning.
We have had some data released as to what the air pollution situation has been lately. Sam Casey-Rera, do you remember? Oh, right, sorry, David, you want to reply. Great, thank you.
Yes, if you read the press release, came out last week, most of our monitors are diffusion, so Simon's right, it will take a year for us to measure the average there. But within the 3 air quality management areas, which are Watlington, Wallingford and Henley, we have some real-time detectors there, and within that press release it shows the month-by-month movement, so we can see what the impact of the lockdown has been over that period.
Good. Anyone else? Celia Wilson has just dropped out, so we have to remember Candida. I don't know if you'll be able to remember what we then talk about so that you can bring her back up to speed when she comes back in. Good. Let's move on then to number 5, heating options appraisal for Farringdon Leisure Centre. And that isn't totally relevant to us because that's in Vale of the White Horse. But we think there may be stuff that we can learn from what they are considering in Farringdon. And I was wondering if the Task and Finish group could have some sort of discussion over that. I can't remember what you thought about that, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle Wells, Insight and Policy Manager. I'm not sure how relevant that would be for South Oxfordshire. It is a Vale of White Horse project, and it is with the leisure team and the cabinet member for that area to consider. So I'm not sure how appropriate it would be for a Task and Finish group to take that item forward, Chair. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Celia, all we talked about was air pollution and the fact that in Wallingford, Watlington and Henley, which have got air quality management actions areas, we have got more real-time data of what's going on with air pollution. So we've got some idea of what's happening. Thank you, Chair. Just as an average, yeah. Okay, number 6, Oxfordshire tree mapping project, which is in progress. Has anybody got anything that they want to say about that? Okay, number 7. Identify opportunity.
Sorry, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Stefan here.
Yeah, hi.
Sorry, I didn't put a comment in that I wanted to speak in the chat. Really, just to talk about the tree mapping project. The of great concern. Yes, I agree with all of the tree mapping, but a great concern to sort of me and sort of the Henley area is actually the mapping of hedges as well, because hedges actually do contribute, obviously, to carbon reduction. And I was wondering whether this was actually going to be linked with biodiversity and habitats, and also wildlife corridors as well, because just mapping trees on their own actually doesn't connect with the whole of the issues to do with this section. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. What we need to be doing is thorough mapping of the whole of the ecology of South Oxfordshire down to the quadrat level. And we haven't really got that in our project plans as yet, have we? We've talked a bit about nature recovery networks. I think Michelle would like to come in. Yeah, if I may make a suggestion, our specialist planning officer could come along either to a future committee meeting, or we could hold a task and finish group meeting around the Oxfordshire tree mapping project, because I think what we need is for our specialist planning officer to give us a more detailed assessment of the scope of that project. So I'm just noting that in the introduction to the project, it does kind of allude to not just looking at tree cover opportunities, but also other habitats such as existing woodland and things like that. So I would hope it does cover the things that have been alluded to around habitat creation and biodiversity. But I think what I would like to suggest is that we have the specialist planning officer perhaps come to a future committee, or we hold a task and finish group meeting so we can fully understand the scope of this project to make sure it meets our needs. That's good. So that would be the biodiversity officer, would it? That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that would be terrific. And yes, and then we need to assess whether we would like it to go further, because when you're right that it does talk about looking at existing woodland, arable and pasture land or parks and golf courses to assess what habitat we've got and whether we could plant trees on it. But actually, and I'm sure the biodiversity officer is fully aware of what we do need to do, but in order to get nature recovery networks, we do need to go quite a lot deeper and quite a lot wider to really see how we can join ecosystems up.
I think don't decide it now. Sorry, Councillor Stephen Gavrishak again. I think don't decide it now. I think if the biodiversity officer comes to the next meeting to have a talk, because sometimes, I mean, trees are brilliant and we should do it, but sometimes actually planting trees in the wrong place can actually be detrimental to wildlife, etc., etc., etc. So let's hear what the officer has to say. Okay, thank you.
Great. Sam, you wanted to speak?
Councillor Caserera, I just want to say on that report, number 22, we have a biodiversity item. So that's where the biodiversity, I'm assuming, I don't know if Michelle Wells wants to speak to that. That's, you know, where we're going to be developing that theme of biodiversity, and it'll be in line, I suppose, with the tree and the wildlife and the etc. Is that correct?
That sounds right.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, so the project number 22 that's listed in the table is separate to the tree mapping projects.
Yeah, cool. Simon.
Yeah, just a second Stefan's point. Sorry, Councillor Simon Hewardine. If we're doing a tree mapping project, obviously the opportunity to lay heathers and to lay various other sorts of low-level cover could arise at the same time. So just purely in terms of saving resources, actually, if as part of the tree mapping some attention could be given, I'm sure the officer will talk to us about that when they come. We'd kind of be covering, I don't want to say killing two birds with one stone in the context of biodiversity because it doesn't sound great, but I think you get my gist, just making the best of our available time.
Brilliant, yeah. Okay, let's move on to number 7. In identify opportunities to invest in solar energy off-site, which is in progress, which is lovely. Heather, would you like to tell us anything more about this?
Good evening. So this is one of the actions in our work programme, and it's very much an exploration of how we can do work in addition to actions on our own estate. So other councils are looking at the potential of engaging with off-site solar farms and then contractually matching the renewable electricity that's generated to the council's emissions. We're at very early stages and we hope to engage with outside organisation Low Carbon Hub to explore the options we may have. We understand that the council's priority would be to look at sites very local. We're not looking to find somewhere in another part of the country to invest in. We're looking at what opportunities are available in our area.
Super, thank you. Number 8, Oxfordshire Green Tech. This is to pal up with other councils and experts within a local business network so that we can learn from one another, which is something that we talked about previously. It's all part of the work programme. It's been paused and hopefully we'll get going as soon as everybody gets going again. Number 9, staff intranet page on the climate emergency, general public information on the climate emergency, including retrofitting for residents, policy and strategy review and workshop. So these are generally things that Bioregional and One Planet Oxfordshire are working on. So yeah, in progress. Number 10, grounds maintenance and public toilet cleaning services. I have no idea what that's on about, but it's in progress, so that's good. Number 11, Crowmarsh offices, which are in progress, and some of the recognition that we would hope to get by creating a superb office. Oh, I think David Rain wants to speak. Is that right, David? Or was that before? No, yeah, David.
Yeah, I never pass up an opportunity to talk about grounds maintenance and public toilet cleaning. Yeah, that's just to say that the process of bringing that service in-house is underway, and the reason for doing that is to give us the flexibility in how we manage the grounds. So that's just reminding the committee that that's why we're doing it, because at the moment we have a fixed contract with a grounds maintenance provider, and we have to specify what they do, and if we want to change it we have to renegotiate it. Whereas if we bring it in-house, we can, if this committee then decides we want to do something different, then we can do it. That was the thinking behind that activity.
So that would be with respect to better biodiversity management in the grounds, would it, or other things?
Hopefully, sorry, David Roying, Councillor. Yes, hopefully that is what this committee would decide it wants to do with our grounds. I don't want to over-egg it because we haven't got that many, we don't own parks and things, but we do own a few cemeteries, and we do also have sort of peripheral pieces of land that we could maintain in a different way to just cutting the grass.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so back to the Crowmarsh offices, it could be that the change in working practices means that we can somewhat change the spec of it, and although we have already been intending to go for flagship public sector estate project, it would be good if we can be absolutely certain that we're going to go the whole hog with zero carbon, net zero carbon emissions in its operation, but also net zero carbon in the build. And this is such an important and, for me, quite a new way of looking at things. I've only been thinking about that for the last year, that things have to be zero carbon in the builds as well. So that we might be able to aim a bit higher, or aim as high as physically possible with the changed circumstances. Number 12, Oxfordshire electric vehicle infrastructure strategy. That is in progress. We last in January, I think it was, we
I think Councillor Wilson wants to speak.
Oh, right. Hello, Celia. Yes.
Apologies, Councillor Wilson, you are currently muted.
Sorry, Councillor Celia Wilson speaking. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can I ask how up to date the entry in item 11 is, please? Is there any more to go in that is happening at the moment?
We are in the process of re-looking at the whole of the Crowmarsh office's considerations, but no decisions have been made as yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. I wondered with item 12 whether Caroline Newton had anything to say. I don't know if there's been any meetings of that group. So if
so Caroline Newton, Councillor, no, the short answer is no, there hasn't been anything. And in fact, until I was reading through the papers, I didn't know that the project board had agreed the scope or the vision document or the governance or the terms of reference, and they hadn't come to me. So that's something I'll take up offline with Michelle, or whoever Michelle tells me is the correct person to speak to.
Thank you.
Key to make progress.
Good. Stefan.
Sorry, yes, Councillor Stephen Gavrisha. On the item 12, I'm slightly dismayed on this particular one about the lack of progress on it. As you know, Henley Climate Emergency Group have done an awful lot of work on this, and actually, scoping sites and also, possible usability, and also companies as well. And we've had continuous pushback from Oxfordshire County Council in particular. They're sort of saying that the spec for towns won't be ready until about January of next year. Now it must be a year and a half or 2 years after the horse has bolted. And also information from South Oxfordshire. South Oxfordshire are planning to put chargers in the car parks in Henley, I'll be specific. And again, there seems to be a lack of information or a lack of momentum behind this. So I don't know whether, Chair, you have any information that's more up to date than I've got.
I haven't. Michelle, have you got anything?
Thank you, Michelle Wells, Insight and Policy Manager. I don't have anything immediately to hand to update the committee on. Unfortunately, I am aware there have been a number of project steering group meetings since March that I've been unable to attend due to my priorities being refocused onto the COVID-19 efforts. I will attempt to work with the county to get a fuller update for the committee, and I'll get that to you, Chair, as soon as I can for you to circulate round.
Thank you. Yeah, David Rowan.
Yes, Councillor David Rowan. We, as a district, we're looking at the natural place to put these, which would be our car parks, but the county has government money to do this, and it would be silly for us to go ahead and do things until they decide where they're going to put theirs, because they've got the funding to do it. So yeah, we're equally frustrated. We want them to tell us where they're going to do it, then we can fill the gaps. But at the moment, I hate to say it as ever, but as often, the county is a sticking point on this.
Councillor Alan Thompson.
I think I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted? It's Alan Thompson, Didcot. I'm led to believe from people I know that within 10 years this system of charging cars will be completely out of date. So I'm wondering how much this is going to cost if we do have to pay for it ourselves.
I think we just have to go with what exists at the moment. We have an electric car and we use the chargers that exist, and it's difficult to know what will happen in the future. Sam, have you got a point?
Yeah, Councillor Sam Casey Wainwright. Just to Councillor Thompson's point, I think that's the sort of decision that county are busy trying to make, isn't it? The type of charging, there are, I think, 2 or 3 types. And I think that's the sort of area that the grant is covered by, that sort of decision. And 10 years, it depends how many you have, but 10 years is actually quite a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Let's move on to 14, the Planning Design Guide. So this is quite exciting that the SEAC Task and Finish group will be invited to help develop the Planning Design Guide and the zero carbon aspects of it, and the move to zero carbon as quickly as possible. The design guide, of course, is much broader than just talking about carbon emissions from homes. It should be, well, it will be about whole estates and whole areas, and how planning can interact with work to reduce carbon. As we progress, as we make our way through the inspection of the local plan, there have been interactions between our planning department and the inspector to update various aspects and to make modifications to try and bring the local plan a bit more in line with the climate change agenda that we have. And the good part of that is that the very target that we set for all homes to be zero carbon, well, for a zero carbon outcome in 2030 is one of the drivers and one of the hooks that has been used by our planning department to redesign a new policy for the emerging local plan, to say that by 2030 all new houses will be zero carbon. We feel that we could go quite a lot further than that. It's difficult to know what the inspector will accept, but we are asking now for SEAC to actually be, well, the Task and Finish group to actually be involved in seeing whether we can make any amendments to, it's called DES 11, this particular new planning policy, to make it a bit more ambitious and make it actually fit our intent a bit more tightly. So that was really the answer to what you were asking. Councillor Celia Wilson, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear me? Yes. The interest that I have in this, I'm delighted to hear that these things are in the pipeline and may happen later. The problem for planning applications that exist at the moment is that there is no possibility of requiring carbon zero building. But I'd like to suggest that both the SEAC and other parts of the District Council could start to ask that that a request is made in planning applications, in responding to planning applications from immediately, with a view to saying we'd request that carbon zero building be used, and that especially if those things are likely to come into the future design guide and regulations, then we will have an opportunity to publicise that and make it happen a little bit and some of the time.
What we do have is that under the core strategy, homes should have been being built to Code 4. That got mucked up a bit in 2015 when the Secretary of State, Eric Pickles at the time, said that it was no longer required to build to that standard. However, we are permitted to require the building to that standard. And we discussed in previous SEAC meetings how we would like to ensure that enforcement of that Code 4 standard, which isn't brilliant, it's not Code 6, it's not Passive House or anything like that, but it's better than building regs. But to insist that that Code 4 standard actually be adhered to. So that would take us some other way, Celia. And so we haven't yet recruited that enforcement officer, but that will be what we are aiming to go for. Councillor Simon Hewerdine, what would you like to say?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Sue Cooper mentioned earlier, we both just come off of a leaders call, and listening to the noises that are coming from government, I think we need to be aware as a climate change committee that there is likely to be a push on relaxing permitted development rights, such that shops can repurpose themselves into and change their use under permitted development, and those rights, judging by what was certainly in the paper at the weekend, those rights may be extended, as they sadly have done before, to offices and what have you. And although the government may have said they announced net zero, at the same time we may be facing lots of buildings that are inappropriate being repurposed. And my fear is that net zero is when we're not building them, we're using buildings we already have. So I would just suggest that in light of this wholesale change that may emerge, and that includes the withdrawal or the escalation of planning powers above a local authority at our level, so we don't have them at all, that the planning design guide review is a kind of dynamic process, and we keep in mind the art of the possible, because I'm quite worried that we could go through this process and have the rug pulled from under us. So if there's people that we can keep in touch with, if our planners can keep in touch with the relevant people from government, so that we actually come out with a policy that can be enforced, rather than end up with something that is infeasible in the changing environment. I don't know how that could be done, but I'm quite worried that we could be rearranging chairs on the Titanic at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, actually, and that is one rather depressing aspect of the inspector's comments on the emerging local plan, that where previously our planners had put in the words that the building had to be in accord with certain of our documents, he has said, because those documents are not legally enforceable documents, you have to change the wording to that they should have regard to these documents. And I think that applied to the planning design guide. So yeah, we're not heading in a good direction in some respects. But we do what we do and rearrange the chairs as fast as we can. Number 15, engagement with residents, parish councils and community groups. Support town councils in delivering climate emergency plans and projects. Residents survey on climate change. And although that is paused, Michelle, you said something really positive the other day, and I wonder if you would like to say it again.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just remind me what I said that was very positive? Sorry.
Actually, Michelle, can I just see what Sam wanted to say, because I missed her.
It was just to the previous point. So this is Councillor Sam Casey-Rera. The task and finish group for the advice on the policies. Is it going to be the same task and finish group? I mean, what just on a sort of procedural point, how are we going to go forward with that?
Well, okay, so there'll be right, going back to number 14. So we'll have a task and finish group to discuss this planning design guide, and it could be the same people, but are there other people who would like to do that specific thing then, look at the planning design guide? Sam, would you be interested? You've gone mute. You're still mute.
Yes, I'm happy to be on that one if it's a separate one.
Yeah, okay.
Needs to do that.
Anyone else want to be on a planning design guide? And
yes,
there's 11. Sorry, who said yes?
Celia.
Celia.
But I'm horrified at the idea that you're going to have two separate task and finish groups. However,
well, they're different tasks, so I mean, actually, it'll be. I'm sure Joe would want to do it still, so we'll just add Sam in. That's fine.
Okay.
And actually, the point for Candida to minute is that we specifically want to be involved in addressing DES 11 urgently, because the inspection starts in a month, and so if we can make any modifications on DES 11, then we want to do that really, really quickly.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. Right, Michelle, what the positive thing that you were talking about was how the COVID-19 response had meant that you had got to know lots of the people in the towns and the villages, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I remember. Yeah, I think I think it would be a good opportunity now actually to just advise that what I'm looking to bring forward to the committee meeting that we're looking to arrange in July is a report that summarises the national and Oxfordshire COVID-19 recovery plans. And one of the reasons I'm bringing that forward is so we can kind of give some consideration to those plans to make sure that they focus not just solely on the economic recovery, but also capture all of the gains that we've seen in respect of climate change and health as well, and kind of start to look at it more holistically. So I'll be bringing forward a report to the July committee that covers all aspects of the COVID-19 recovery to inform your thinking. And I also thought it would be helpful to bring forward the corporate plan principles and programmes that will be going out for consultation in July. So you'll be able to kind of review the regional and Oxfordshire kind of recovery planning around COVID. You'll be able to review that in tandem with the corporate plan principles and programmes of work, and then look at the work programme that you've got in front of you today and review the projects within it and start to think, are there things in here that need strengthening or reprioritising or taking out because they just don't necessarily fit anymore, either with those corporate plan priorities or with the wider COVID recovery work that's going in. So just wanted to take the opportunity to outline that piece of work that I'm looking forward to bringing to you in July. The piece that Chair is referencing is in my work on the COVID-19 Community Hub for South Oxfordshire. Obviously, we've seen a huge swell of support from our community groups and from our towns and our parish councils. And one of the opportunities that could come out of the whole situation is because we've seen such a swell of support and those community groups and towns and parishes coming together so well to support residents through COVID, I just wondered whether there is an opportunity there to harness that and use those same networks to promote the climate change message.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I wondered if Kate, Councillor Kate Gregory would like to say anything, because I think Henley has also got a superb network system, but you actually talked me through your one in Tame, Kate, and it sounded really exciting. It's sort of new grassroots democratisation in a sense, and fantastic messaging possibilities.
Yeah, hi, Councillor Gregory here. So yeah, we've had in Tame a fantastic response to the crisis and it has definitely been a grassroots level. It's everyone's kind of come together, which yeah, it's the communication and everyone has been plugged into that that like kind of the same group. So yeah, there's definitely a communication network there.
Yeah, good. Right, number 16, Oxfordshire Pension Fund consultation on investment strategy statement. That is in progress. Now we've got Jo Robb, who is our representative on the Oxfordshire Pension Fund, and she's been making waves. It's quite exciting. She's actually caused Brunel, who is the investment company that the pension fund works with, to work to start setting up a completely new fund, which will be a sort of carbon zero-y good fund. So it's good to see South Oxfordshire making real waves in the pension fund part. Councillor Alan Thompson.
Hello, if you can hear me, it's Alan Thompson. Just to reiterate, I'm also on the Pension Fund Committee as a county councillor for Didcot, and you'll be pleased to know that obviously I've been doing things like that already, hopefully. And the other thing is if you look on there, there was a special committee, one-off assembly of people, and that's going to happen every year. To do with green things now. They've decided to have that next year already.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Yep.
Cheers.
That's really good. Number 17, recruit climate change lead. So this was the most exciting aspect, I thought, of our programme, because we would have a new dedicated officer, which would be significant extra capacity for us. So that's ongoing. Job evaluation required before being advertised. So, Michelle, has that been delayed at all? Or I suppose it has. When would we have done this? And when will it come live?
It has been delayed, unfortunately, because of my efforts being refocused. I have come back to it now, and I have been looking to progress it over the last couple of weeks or so. The recruitment will need to go through SMT, and I have requested a job evaluation for the post, and that job evaluation will just make sure that in terms of the remuneration for the post, it's in line with other council positions, and obviously SMT will review the business case for why that post is required as well, and may obviously challenge it as discretionary spending, but yeah, it is something that I'm looking to progress. Slightly delayed though.
SMT stands for Senior Management Team, and Michelle, why would they question it at this stage? It's been passed in the budget. Doesn't that mean that it's solid?
Yes, so the steer that our senior management team are giving at the moment is that any uncommitted discretionary spend may be challenged at the moment, given the financial landscape that we're operating in. So yes, it's been approved in the budget, but we may experience some challenge to that spend. But that's only kind of prudent and not something that I would consider unusual at this stage.
And if there were a decision against it, or a lessening of it, would that come back to councillors to approve?
I'd be keeping you up to date on that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Number 18, launch work programme. So that's training really of our staff, and that's understandably paused. Number 19, electric pool vehicles for staff business travel, initial pilot for testing and evaluation. So that's actually, we're now in a place where things weren't scheduled to start, although we must be in Q1 by now, mustn't we? That would have started at the beginning of April, would it? Sorry, Michelle, back to you. Is that what Q1 is? Does it start in April?
Apologies, Chair, I think there's a slight lag. Yes, that's right. So Q1 is April, so we work in financial years. Good.
So hopefully that will be underway, depending on the situation, I guess. Low carbon council estate, number 20, low carbon council estate work package, including energy saving opportunities and renewable energy in council buildings. An invitation to quote and project specification will be drafted. So that's still on course, I suppose, for Q1. Council reports. This one this is number 21. Council reports, council reporting and decision-making templates to include climate and biodiversity impact section. And that's paused at the moment. I suppose that's actually quite a big job. So hopefully that will, I mean, that's really important that we have this golden thread that passes through all of our activities. So let's hope that gets resumed soon. Councillor Celia Wilson.
Just a quick question about the items that have been paused and that are booked for Q1. Do they depend upon the appointment of the new staff member, or are the existing staff members able to pick up those reins now?
Michelle, could you answer that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilson, for your question. Really good question. No, they don't depend on the appointment of a climate change lead. They are things that we have scheduled that my officers and I will be picking up.
Thank you.
So, sorry to keep coming back to you, but might we expect council reports to have that change to them fairly soon? Or what are the timelines?
I don't have any timelines for this meeting on the councillor reports. They were currently paused because the majority of our democratic services team have been focusing on getting the virtual meeting protocols in place for us all. I have had some contact with the democratic services manager in the last week or so since these reports have gone public, and he has picked up on that point being outstanding. So I think that is something that we can move quite quickly on now.
Can I just add that Steve Culliford confirmed those reports have been completed now, just for your information.
Excellent. Good. Councillor Casey-Raright.
Yes, sorry, I'm just going to be a bit challenging on that because didn't we agree all this back in January, I think, the work programme? And I wouldn't have thought that would be a particularly big thing to change the templates. So I'm glad to hear that it's going ahead, but it was agreed long before the COVID problems, I think. So sorry to be challenging, but I feel that it's important to point that out.
Thank you. Point 22, biodiversity theme projects. Specialist planning officer to provide a project plan. So we've already talked about this a little bit earlier about, I mean, I think we're talking about Dominic Lamb here, presumably. And to provide a project plan, but there's quite a lot of money put against it. So I suppose that's quite a big job. And it's paused. So Michelle, would you mind giving us an update on that?
Can you confirm the project number for me, please, Chair?
22.
Thank you. I have no update on project number 22, so it's currently paused, and with the specialist planning officer to provide a project plan around biodiversity for you. Obviously, we've got some budget allocated towards that for him to work within as well. So it's currently paused.
But we have agreed that he will come and talk to us, so I suppose that he will tell us what the project would be about once we get going.
Yeah, he could do that. If I could just remind the committee that, you know, there are a number of reasons why projects are currently paused. Mainly, obviously, that they are due to constraints on staff resources. So you'll be aware some officers are working full-time or nearly full-time supporting COVID-19. But in addition to that, we've got some officers who are unable to work full-time for us at the moment due to personal circumstances, such as childcare and other caring responsibilities and things like that. So if I could just remind the committee where projects are paused, it's within that context.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah. Number 23, business breakfast event, an event to support and inspire local businesses to act. that will be very much something we need to think about, I think, at the next meeting as part of the green recovery with the economic development team. Pause. The conference is paused. That might, I don't know to what extent we're thinking that that needs to pause, because it would need to be a physical thing. It could be quite advantageous. It could be that if we can work out how to do a conference on MS Teams, that's going to save a load of money and might be just as effective. So we might need to think of sort of rethinking the way that we do things. I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that. Councillor Celia Wilson suggests we look at an interim conference.
Sorry,
but it may be that it's just unrealistic at the moment. Well, as Michelle has pointed out, there are constraints on what people are able to do at the moment.
Sorry, can I come in? It's
yes.
Sue Cooper.
Yeah.
Just on this business of holding online conferences, which is, yes, a very good idea, would be much cheaper to run. The point there is that MS Teams is currently configured just on council interchanges, so everybody's got to have a council email address basically to get in. Now the other day I chaired the last growth board that I was chairing, and we had to have that on Zoom because we had people, from the universities, from the National Health System, other outside bodies. And so I think we might need to move away from Teams to have these things. I mean, I think it's technically possible, but not within Teams is the point I'm trying to make. But it doesn't preclude it for the future. We can move.
Yeah, okay. Well, you've got lots of Zoom enthusiasts around, so I'd be really happy to move from MST.
I think they're just slightly concerned about the security of it, but I think as things move on and Zoom is becoming much more security conscious, and as I say, we held the growth board perfectly okay via Zoom, and indeed, since Parliament can use it, you do have to wonder why we can't.
Yeah, and Councillor Casey Rare is suggesting a webinar as well. That's another option. Number 25, green travel plan has been paused. Number 26, electric vehicles for the council fleet, paused. Number 27, South Grants Programme, refocus of the grants programme to support community-led initiatives which address climate change. Now, we've just had a refocus of the South Grants Programme, of course, with our own councillor grants, of which we've each been allocated £2,000 to use for the COVID-19 response. So we'll carry on pausing that until we've had time to reappraise things. 28, officer training scheduled for Q2. In fact, everything else is scheduled for Q2, Q3 and Q4. Might as well just quickly run through them in case we've got any points to make on them. 29 is Cozy Homes, which is Oxfordshire's retrofitting scheme. Well, it's low carbon hubs retrofitting scheme, but we know that it's still somewhat in its infancy because it needs a lot of money and a lot of resource to get these things really moving forward. One thing that I would like to say is that whilst Cozy Homes is supposed to be providing the advice, well, it can do that. It provides advice to people on how to retrofit their homes and what needs to be done. And then it moves forward into providing a project manager who actually helps people through the retrofit of their homes. But this is all for able to pay people. Now, we do have rolling funds within South Oxfordshire for people who own their homes, need to make repairs to their homes, can't afford to do so, and then there's the capacity for paying back over a long period, or even not paying back but waiting until they sell the house. Now we could use some of those rolling funds, and I'd love for us to be able to do the sort of facilitation on the financial front that the district councils used to do back in the day, when they used to provide grants for people to make home repairs and the rest of it. Councillor Celia Wilson says Cosy Homes was working well before lockdown. Yes, I paid that, but you will only have got, I think, the advice so far, probably. Celia, do actually speak rather than put comments in the box, because I'm quite happy to hear someone else's voice apart from my own. Is that Celia wanting to speak?
Well, I was just going to say that yes, I mean, just to say that what I said in the message, that they were working well, and I worked with them really closely, and they seemed very good. But of course, it all went away with lockdown. So I'm hoping it will be possible now to pick it up again.
Yeah, sure. Point 30, single-use plastic and plant-based diets, and that's really mostly within our own estate we're talking. Number 31, town-based energy data. Did want to talk about this because actually I had a phone call yesterday from Cholsey Parish Council asking how they could get on with baselining their carbon footprints, which is what Ether are doing for the whole district. And we have talked previously about how Ether might be able to bring it down to the local level. So I wonder where we are with that, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Wells, Insight and Policy Manager. So Ether have completed their model for the South Oxfordshire district carbon emissions baseline. So that's obviously at a district level. The town-based energy data is a piece of work that we could look to do, that's scheduled for October and November of this year. So there's been no further action on that item.
Right, I think Cholsey might be disappointed. I would have thought, but this is me being naive, that Ether would have built up the energy data by starting at the ground level, and therefore it should be reasonably easy for them to disentangle that. Caroline Newton is just leaving the meeting. Thank you, Caroline. But well, clearly not. So it's not easy for them to give even basic data to the town or parish level. Michelle, we don't think?
It's not something that I'm aware of, but I'm aware Heather Saunders may want to comment on that.
Good evening. It's just a point of procedure. We were able to appoint Ether for the initial work within our procurement rules. With these wider projects numbers 31 and 32, we would need to go out to seek quotes from more than one organisation. We're unable to just continue the work with Ether.
Oh dear. Right. Okay. Well, maybe we'll learn a bit more when the Task and Finish group meets up with Ether. Number 32, district-wide emissions model. Development of a model to estimate how future district-wide carbon emissions will reduce as we follow our projects. That's scheduled for Q3. Number 33, electrical vehicle hire facility. Feasibility study scheduled Q3. Number 34, enforcement officer. This is different from the other enforcement officer. The other enforcement officer that we were talking about a bit earlier was an enforcement officer to look at Code 4 to ensure that new built homes were at least meeting Code 4 for sustainable homes. This enforcement officer is specifically for private rented homes and the minimum energy standards, and making sure that the energy performance certificates are at least an E, I think it is at the moment, that they have to meet. So we are going to be recruiting someone to do that work, but that has been paused at the moment. So that takes us to the end of that, I think. So yes, that takes us to the end of our work programme update. Thank you very much for that, Michelle and Heather. That's a tremendous piece of work. It's really good to see where things are going. And the final item is public participation, but we have none. And actually the final one, which we were going to have as an agenda item for the future, which was to ensure that any things that people wanted to go on to future agendas, onto our rolling programme, if you like, should be up there. And so, as Councillor Wilson pointed out, we would like to have the how to work better with farmers to try to improve biodiversity as one of those agenda items. Is this okay, Candida? This is what we have said at a previous meeting, because we weren't doing matters arising and we weren't doing any other business, that we would open up an opportunity for all of the members to come up with anything that they wanted on future agendas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Councillor Alan Thompson.
I'm surprised that there's nothing to do with bicycles or walking at all on this. I would have thought that would be a major consideration, especially with Didcot Garden Town coming in. And I wonder if that could be added to the agenda, perhaps as a ongoing thing. You know, this might be relevant to the new headquarters. You know, to make sure provide cycle lanes when we build it, whenever we build it, etc., etc.
That's a really good point. Thank you very much, Alan. Yes, it's not highlighted, and in the light of Grant Shapps' announcement and what the Secretary is, what the Department for Transport is trying to achieve now, then that's really pertinent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sam Casey-Rareeye.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, just in reference to cycling, actually, it's a good point, and I think that there has been something in our work plan about travel plans for council staff. So that would obviously cover non-carbon and active travel, non-carbon emitting and active travel. And for the work plan, I think that's actually was something I was going to bring up, was that I was going to talk a little bit about cycling and my work as cycling champion, maybe at a future meeting, and the strategic active travel network that I'm sort of working with other cycle champions to develop as to do with the motion that we passed last December about that. So yeah, that can be added, I think, and a work programme was agreed. So you're right, it was agreed, I think, at the last meeting or the meeting before, that we'd add it to. So I think that's fine, we can just add it now.
Yeah. Councillor David Ruane.
Yes, a proposed amendment to Celia's suggestion that it should be farmers and landowners, because not all landowners are farmers, but their impact might be the same.
Good, yes. Councillor Celia Wilson.
I'm just identifying a couple of things for the next agenda, which is considering what's been said about the ARC and the government's intentions regarding the ARC area. So if we could have an update on that in the next meeting, and also on the opportunities for town councils to use any air quality or other data, how that's getting on, because I think that's something that that town councils, and I'm thinking of town council in particular, will want to be following at as early a date as possible.
Yeah, I think a feedback on the air pollution data will be really helpful. That's a good idea. Yeah. Councillor Sue Cooper has pointed out that it is Bike Week now. So get on your bikes, chaps. And I think that's all for now. Thank you very much for coming. See you in early July, which is when we would like to meet next to really hone in on this green recovery.
Great, thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.